You know, as I sat at my computer and really worked on this message for today, my mind was totally wrapped around the tragedy in Pawnee Rock. And our thoughts all go out to the one that we know most, Keith, who went through the death of his life partner, Marion, to cancer some 7.5 years ago. And now he's going through the unthinkable with the death of his son, his daughter-in-law, his granddaughter, and his great-granddaughter. You know, I reread the funeral service that I gave for Marion. And that was in July of 2006. And while Marion was relatively young when she died, I thought about the difference between these two deaths. Keith had time to prepare, to say the things that he needed to say and wanted to say to her before her death. But with Glenn and his family, there was no time to say those things. And I'm reminded of the scripture that says we do not know the hour or the minute. And we are reminded not to wait, to say the things that we need to say to one another, and to do the good things that God puts before us as things to do. During my last conversation with Marion, she mentioned that she wanted to go into that dark night, into death, with trust and faith, so that her family would know that death is not the end. And she did. She did it her way. She didn't live a long time after she was diagnosed with cancer, but every minute of every day she lived fully. They didn't hide the truth about death from their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And Samantha, the 16-year-old that was killed in the accident, she had told Marion told me this, that they had talked all about heaven before Marion's death. And Samantha had told her great-grandma that heaven is a wonderful place where everyone is happy and gets along, and you don't have to worry about what you're going to eat or wear. She had great insight. And now I think about this 16-year-old young girl with all her future ahead of her, and yet she knows what heaven is like. She's experiencing this beautiful place and use that God has prepared for us when we die. And Marion, as someone has said, I think it was Margaret that said, she was there to greet them all as they came into heaven. And I truly believe that Marion, by her example, helped all the family even now to accept that death is a part of life, an unpredictable, painful, hurtful part of life, but to rest assured that God is totally there through it all. And God is carrying the ones that need to continue to live, like Keith, to find a reason to live. I want to read for you the 23rd Psalm, but I want to read it from the Message. Because so often, you know, when we have our annual meeting, we repeat the 23rd Psalm, and most all of us learn it as a child. And I think those words, sometimes when you speak them so frequently, we don't hear them as much. So this is from the Message translation, the 23rd Psalm. God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You have bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I am not afraid when you walk at my side. Your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessings. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. And if we'd have done the children's sermon today, I have the verses that have been rewritten for a child. So we'll share that another day. It's just beautiful. You know, I've said this before, and I want to say it again, but when we know someone that's going through the most incredible, difficult time, often we're thinking in our minds, how can they manage? How can they keep going on? And for those of you that have gone through this valley of death with its heartache and pain, you know the answer. You just do. And this is the time that God carries you, lifting you up when you have no strength, groaning prayers for you when you don't know what to pray. God is very, very near in time of sickness and death. And I know right now that Keith could not get through this if it were not for his trust in God and willingness to let people around him comfort him and to surround him with God's love that flows through them to him. And this is the big and, knowing that his loved ones are in heaven and someday he will be back with them. This life is not all there is. From Romans 8:2, and these are such powerful words too. In the same way, the Holy Spirit helps us when we are weak. We don't know what we should pray for, but the Spirit himself prays for us with groans too deep for words. That's a loving God, with groans too deep for words. I love that image of our loving God aching for us in our pain. And the closer we allow ourselves to come to God, the closer God comes to us. I imagine Keith has been and probably is in that space where he cannot pray. He heard the news over the TV while he was waiting for his family to arrive in Nashville. It seems so wrong. We are all praying for him. And he told me that he can feel our prayers. And others, Margaret, when she went through her surgery, said she could feel the prayers, or with her stroke. She could feel people praying for her and lifting her up. There's so much power in that prayer. So when we listen to those words from the 139th Psalm, when we talk about God knowing what is in our heart, knowing when we sit up, when we sit down, I mean, even these intricate little parts of our lives, we wonder why. Why is God so involved in every little aspect of our lives? We come to church, and yes, we can feel God here. But the important thing is to be able to feel God when you get up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, when you're cooking dinner, when you're washing dishes, everything, every bit of your life. God is involved in all the little details and knows and wants to be a part of all of that. So like you, as I've been following this tragedy in the news, I was thinking, what is most important for us? For our church here, for people around in Pawnee Rock and Great Bend and those that knew him, and all of these reverberations and these from the pebble in the brook with all of the people that have been touched by this tragedy. What is most important? What is the good that can come out of tragedy? Because we know that good can. If you listen to the news, and Margaret said there was another big story in the Hutch paper today, but the Mulls lived a life of generosity and goodness. And they gave a lot to their community. They gave a lot through their church. People are reminded how important I think that is through this time. And the other thing that I was thinking about was how important it is for the kids. They're going to call off school on Tuesday so all the kids and the teachers can attend the services. And sometimes we need death as a reminder. And sometimes I think kids need death as a reminder that they're not invincible and they're not immortal. Because if you remember at that age, unless you're faced with something like this, you don't even think about tomorrow. You think about what's happening and who you are right now. But I think with Samantha at age 16 dying, that a lot of teenagers will think a little bit deeper about what is really important in their lives. So my prayer is that it will not only be what they wear and what they're going to eat and who their friends are, but how they treat their friends and how they care for one another. So I wonder this day, what would you all say is the list of what is really important in your lives?
Family.
Family.
Friends.
Friends.
The Bible.
The Bible, the Word.
Loyalty.
Loyalty. Loyalty. And what are the actions that really matter? What are the things that we do that really make a difference?
Showing love.
Showing love,
Kindness.
kindness,
Everyone kindness.
helping others, sharing, listening to one another, and telling others how we feel about them. Remembering. I know I heard someone say that what people remember is not what you said, but how you make them feel
Yeah.
when you talk to them. And I was thinking about last week and how sometimes we just get things so turned around. When we look at how much emphasis was put on the Super Bowl, I mean, can you even tell me who won last year? You know?
Ethan could.
Ethan could, yes. And how much attention we put on which college we go to, or what our house looks like, what profession we enter, and how much time we spend on these things compared to spending them on what really matters. And then I thought about our church. What are we spending our time on here? What more, even though our numbers may not be great, what more could we be doing in the community, in the greater community? And I hope we think about that, because we get so much joy out of what we do at Christmas time, you know, when we share those gifts, but we need to do something more often than that. So that's one of the things I want to put to Gil too, to look at what could we be doing. And when we do these things, we know our numbers swell, and we can offer that opportunity to others in the community to help and do things like this. And then we get to Matthew 8 about do not worrying. And we all know Matthew 6. Oh, was it Matthew? Thank you. Matthew 6. It's in the Sermon on the Mount. So we listen to those words, and we can ask God, help us not be worry-warts. Help us not to worry so much, but to trust. Because when we worry, we lose that peace that God has offered us. And God is so willing to share. He says, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives, but I can give you that deep peace. So this day, I guess my wish for all of us as we look at what is really important in life. What can we do to cast worry aside and to trust that God that we read about in the Psalms, that knows about every aspect of our life, our standing, our sitting, where we eating, what we're doing, and trust, because that God, our God, cares so much about us that we're never alone. And no matter what we have to go through, and no matter what tomorrow brings, we will have God with us, carrying us and taking care of us, and answering our prayers. So this day, let us just pause a moment and think about what is important in our lives and what good action we might personally take to let our loved ones know how much they mean to us and to do good for someone that is needing it. Let us pause in prayer.